What is CRT? What is critical race theory? Well, it's extreme version of cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism was an effort essentially to overthrow everything that made the West strong so that you could implement authoritarian rule based on identity, such as sexuality, race, and all that kind of stuff. It's look up Long March Through the Institutions, probably the best way to do that if you're interested in what cultural Marxism is. So CRT is the extreme version of that. We covered, they say, and you have to take this training to maintain your employment in the West. Remember we said that? You have to study this. You have to more or less agree to this. Only white people are racist. All white people are racist and will be eternally. Western civilization is oppressive and needs to be dismantled. To me, Western civilization is critical thinking and democracy. You don't want to. Critical thinking is easy to confuse with science because science essentially is critical thinking. Science is the idea that if you want to believe a theory, you have to have evidence for it. That's essentially what science is. You can't just put out a theory with no evidence. That's called being objective. It's the cardinal rule in critical thinking. So there's not really that much difference between science and critical thinking. There's no critical thinking without science. There's no science without critical thinking. So, but, science is oppressive. Critical thinking is oppressive. Democracy is oppressive. Western civilization is oppressive. All that stuff has to be dismantled. That's the extreme version of critical race theory. What they want is equity rather than equity, which is equality of outcome, rather than equality, which is the idea that everyone should have equal access to opportunity. If there's a discrepancy, green people make more money than blue people, it must be because blue people don't like green people. And you want to ignore that green people might have a culture that sometimes glorifies crime, or the green people might not stick together as a biological unit, which is the most destructive thing you can do to children. It's kind of weird that residential schools are so concerned about kids that were killed 100 years ago or 50 years ago, maybe some of them, and aren't paying attention to the amount of suffering that's caused by fatherless households, right? And fatherless households are largely caused by the idea that marriage is an oppressive institution and should be abolished. So if you were to compare residential schools to feminism, I mean, the number of kids killed through the residential schools is like so minuscule as to not even be worth considering. Not even close. And science tells us this. People aren't staying together, not just because of feminism, but largely. Feminism and the sexual revolution. Diversity, they're all about diversity, inclusion, and equity. Equity, everybody gets the same money no matter what they do. Diversity is we want fewer white males everywhere, so we're going to discriminate against them. It's legal in Canada. It's in our foundational documents. Inclusion, again, that means fewer white men. It's all about rewriting history, because what they think is that if everybody has the same version of history, which is the one that they tell, then we'll all behave properly and we'll all get along better. Doesn't matter what actually happened. They're counterfactual. They're not big on facts. I actually say this. The origin of the United States is racist. It's slavery. We all got rich from slavery, but that's not actually true, because only a small number of people got rich from slavery, and it didn't help the working class at all. It didn't contribute to the economy, because if you have slaves, you don't have to invent equipment. 100% horseshit, essentially. They want to look at your unconscious biases. So you may not actually have a racist attitude, and you might not have a single racist policy. There's not a single racist policy in any organization. You might be unconsciously racist. And how do we know? Because you committed a microaggression. And how do you know you committed a microaggression? Because you looked at somebody funny. And we got to sort that out. They believe in resegregation, so that means black college, black graduation ceremony, blackness. It's usually about black people. They're the ones being used the most. Political violence is legitimate, so you get Black Lives Matter, Antifa. Hate speech is not free speech. Well, you don't need free speech unless somebody considers your speech hate speech. So right now I'm exercising my free speech. I'm exercising in a way that will cause people to hate me, I guess. And it might cause people to hate critical race theorists. I would listen to myself. I'd take a pretty dim view of critical race theorists. So what I'm saying now should be shut down. What I'm saying can't be said. This is absolutely basic to what they're about, censorship and all of that. Okay, 6:25, we're at the end of lecture 3.